Entrepreneurship as an act of self-care. I'm not sure you've ever thought of it that way, but let me share with you why I think it's a beautiful expression of self-care. The fact is, self-care requires self-study. We really have to know ourselves. Like, we can't take care of ourselves if we don't know ourselves. Well, entrepreneurship allows us the beautiful opportunity to get to know ourselves. See, we get to choose the colleagues with whom we want to work. We get to choose the work that we want to do, the clients with whom we want to work and serve, the environment we want to work in. It's our choice. The hours you keep, our choice when we're entrepreneurs. The collaborators that we seek, 100% our choice. See, entrepreneurship is crafting the business that we want. At least that's the way it can be. And what I discover over and over again in the entrepreneurs that I serve as a concierge coach is we discover that often they left the corporate life behind, really eager to get out, frustrated in so many ways, just held captive to the ways in which a company might be operating that didn't reflect their values, their priorities, their way of working. And then they build their own business. And you know what? Sometimes they end up taking the vestiges and the practices of maybe the corporate life they left behind or are working for somebody else, and they actually replicate the same model in their own business because they didn't take the time to first ask themselves, hey, what do I want? Right? What kind of life do I want? And then I'm going to build a business around that. See, these are the questions we need to ask, but a lot of times we don't. We end up just duplicating the exact experience we left, and we call it entrepreneurship. So we get all the downsides of our, of the old world where we're taking this rigor in and setting hours because that's what you do, working in a certain way because that's what you do when you're in this particular field. And like we forget, this is our opportunity to reinvent everything. And then we get the downsides of entrepreneurship, which frankly can also be the upside. But we've got to pay the bills, and there's no one to answer to but ourselves, which is a beautiful thing. And yet it can be brutal when you have no one to blame except yourself. So the fact is, entrepreneurship is an act of self-care because we are 100% responsible for it. So let's say you are an entrepreneur and you wake up one day and you actually don't. I hear this a lot. This is not unusual. We've actually built these businesses that we come to resent and dislike. We're doing work that we never wanted to do, and it becomes central to our day to day. Or maybe we're so bogged down by the business of our business that we never get to do the work we love in the first place. That we're never really, we've maybe even forgotten why we started the business in the first place. So we've become detached from what it is, that our passion, our original intention. So I was in the corporate world for a very long time, and the fact is, there were lots of elements that I loved about it, and but it also made me deeply sick. It was a corrosive culture that really prevented me from expressing myself. It gave me the safety net for which I was really grateful. I could do things because I knew I had an accountant. There was somebody managing the money, there was somebody managing the marketing. Like, it was such a huge, huge corporation, and there was machinery behind me. So when I launched my own business, I actually kind of told myself it was a hobby. Even though I had gotten all the training and everything, I approached it like a hobby. And the fact is, it wasn't a very successful business. It was fun. I told myself that, I'm doing what I love, which I was, but I really knew that I had to own the business part of this entrepreneurship venture for me to truly love it, to really explore what the potential is, for me to be in service in a better way. So I had to study myself. What did I want? What kind of hours did I want to keep? When I started my business, I would meet people at any point at any time. I'd let them come at any point, anytime, because it really was a scarcity model. I was afraid that if I didn't accept somebody who came to me on their terms, that nobody would come to me, and I'd be having to close the doors of my business before I even got started. So I was over accommodating in this scarcity mindset of, oh my gosh, don't leave me, right? And it wasn't until I took my power back and I remembered, wait a minute. You don't want me at 8 o'clock at night. I am not at my best. I don't want to see you until I've had my morning routine in place. So I really had to get clear. I had to explore and study myself. If I was allowed to build my own business on my terms, what would that look like? Does it matter what other people in my industry are doing? What do I want? I have the added perk and sometimes pressure of being in a field that people are watching. What is she doing? How am I walking my talk? It was so important as I was teaching my clients to set boundaries and to be intentional and deliberate, to walk that talk. Be like, wait a minute, you know what? My morning time is protected. I have a really clear morning strategy and routine that I don't want to dismantle. And I don't want the world intervening into my life until 9 o'clock when I am, already doing some deep work and thinking work, but I don't want to interface with the world until 9 o'clock. So I started building a business that reflected me, reflected my values. And with time, and not a lot of time, I gained confidence. I gained clarity about what I bring to the table, unapologetically owning my strengths and my gifts, because every time I showed up for work, there was an indication that I was valued. When I didn't see a client before 9 o'clock, it meant I was valued. It was like a boss who saw me and cleared the way for me to be successful. Oh, right. And I'm the boss. And there have been lots of days where I really want to fire the boss. I hate my boss. I want to complain to my boss. I want to complain about my boss. And then I take a deep breath and a giggle or two and like, oh, yeah, I'm the boss. I am 100% responsible for what I've created here. If I don't like it, then I created it. I need to take ownership for it. And then I need to be fully invested in changing it. My business doesn't run nearly as well, nor is it as abundant as when I'm not taking care of myself. So when I slide in the self care, immediately, well, I'd say maybe a week. Within a week, it shows in my business. It'll show from a revenue standpoint. It will show from an energy. The opportunities don't flow in the same way. It's really breathtaking when we approach our business as an entrepreneur and saying like this is an expression of the highest self, the highest intellect, the legacy I want to leave. And that requires me to invest in the biggest asset in my company, which is me. When we're entrepreneurs, it behooves us to make investments in ourselves so that every time we show up for work, we see the best of us reflected. So 100% responsible for the energy. If the energy is lagging, it's like, wow, I need to look inward. That makes it hard because if you don't want to do the self-reflection bit, then you're really not leveraging the full potential of your business. It requires a self-awareness. It requires a commitment to really be uniquely you and to show up unapologetically as you, not in reaction to anybody else, not in a competitive manner to anybody you deem your competition, but to compete only with the version of you that you brought to work the day before. There are times when I feel like I need to fire myself as an employee because I'm just not doing the caliber of work I need to. So I'm slipping in and out of that boss employee role and really checking in with myself on a regular basis to make sure, how am I doing? How's my star employee? What does she need? How could I show up for her? How can I support her? What tools and resources does she need? I definitely do this in an in-depth way in every 90 days, making sure it's kind of like an evaluation. I use my planner, which enables me to review the quarter and then to craft the next quarter. And I do it through the lens of Katie as boss, Katie as CEO, and Katie as employee, and really make sure that both aspects of myself are represented. So if I'm not liking the energy, then I know it's all on me, right? If I'm not working in my genius zone, right? The things that I do really well, I have to make sure that I am spending the majority of my time there. If I'm getting bogged down in all the stuff that I'm not good at, numbers not good at, tech not good at, so I've got to outsource those. I've got to look for shortcuts. I've got to do anything. Why? Because the CEO in me knows that I've got to preserve, I've got to get the maximum investment that I can out of my employee. And I've got to remove anything that's going to be an obstacle to her doing her best. So why would I put her in a situation that's going to compromise her? If this employee version of me is really good at doing the coaching work, then I've got to make sure that that's happening, that anything is a distraction or an obstacle to that work, to refining that craft, I've got to remove that because I have deep respect for the employee version of me and what her skills are. So I want you to play around with this. I want you to give yourself some evaluations with compassion, right? With thoughtfulness. And then I can tell you, every entrepreneur with whom I work, when they start, they're fried. They have forgotten that they created this, and then they feel trapped, not knowing that they can actually disentangle themselves and reinvent the way they work. So you can catch yourself before you get to the point of exhaustion and calibrate, align, make sure you are in deep alignment with your highest held values. I remember when I was in my corporate work, and I had to work with a company whose values I didn't respect, who did work I didn't respect, and it was really a crisis for me. I brought to my boss and said, I can't represent this company. I can't represent this client. They don't represent my values. And it really was a turning point because I was not supported in that way. And it helped me to realize, like, I have to do this on my terms. Not all of us are in this position to be able to do it, but I venture that if you have that longing for entrepreneurship, you're curious about it, you're maybe feeling stuck and not in a place that you can express yourself and your entrepreneurial kind of a spirit, I would ask you to do a couple of things. I would ask you to say, if I could reinvent my work and approach it as an entrepreneur, what would I do differently? If you end up staying where you are and working as an entrepreneur, you're going to do so much better because the sense of ownership and pride is there in a way that it might not be otherwise when we're just showing up a cog in the wheel. Elevate our experience to bring in that level of entrepreneurship while still working within a team. And if you decide you want to go out and bring your dream to life, I would really beg you to be thoughtful about the lifestyle you want first, and then build the infrastructure of the business around you. And then also clarify exactly what is it you want to do and get excited about it. And then build your life, build your workday around respecting that. And remember to invest regularly in your best employee, which is you. Don't hesitate to take the time that when you need a break, you give yourself a break. This doesn't come naturally for me. This is something that I work on regularly because I tell myself, well, just keep going and then you can rest. Well, the fact is, the then rarely comes. So we have to be, the way that entrepreneurship is an act of self-care is that we're checking in with ourselves in regular basis, and to make sure that we're in an environment that we love. We're in an environment that values us. And if you aren't, you get to change that. So look at your work and ask yourself, how might it be a vehicle for self-care? Have fun with it. Play with it, express yourself in your work, whether you're an entrepreneur or you're in a different situation. Bring the best version of you in and challenge yourself to make self-care the very effective business strategy, right? Very, very effective business strategy of self-care. Challenge yourself to make that an integral part of how you show up for yourself and how you show up for work. Thanks for listening.